Jason Bieler's album on the wall there.
That is, I put it up because you're on it.
Incredible. That's awesome. I love that record. That guy's so talented.
It is a great record. It's a
Yeah.
little different than what I expected, and it was a good different.
Yeah, it's very he's super ambitious that way and super like musical and super I'm trying to think a lot of King's X type stuff going on. Very, very original, very unique, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, let's get down to business here. I know you got a busy day of interviews.
Yeah, yeah, please hit me.
All right. If I knew absolutely nothing about Blackbird Angels, how would you describe the band's music to me?
Well, we like to think that there was a manifesto in place to kind of really aim for 70s rock, like definitely in the Led Zeppelin vein. For some reason, Bad Company keeps coming up, although I think that that's not quite as accurate of a destination. I like to think Humble Pie, things like that. I don't know how accurate the actual destination was when we reached it. So I think that, like most of these things, you sort of come up with a plan and then the plan sort of, you know, it's always good to have a plan in place and then sort of shifts and changes. There's a couple songs along the way that somebody said to me one time, this one song really sounds like LA Guns. And I go, well, that's a real stretch, I guess.
Who approached who on putting this project together? Was it TRACII Guns that approached you? Did you approach him?
TRACII reached out to me. He was, I mean, TRACII's always been really good to me. We jammed together years ago I had a band here in Las Vegas called the Sin City Sinners, and we would always have guys come in to jam. And TRACII was one of our victims. And he was always very complimentary and very, very, cool about me as a singer and all that kind of stuff. So when the idea came up to do this, it was sort of like, what do you think about doing a 70s type record and this kind of thing? And it became kind of like, absolutely, let's dig into that because we both have a lot of roots in the music we grew up on, and it just seemed to make sense. I think it was during a little bit of the tail end of COVID or lockdown anyway, where it was sort of like, I don't know about you, but I remember it being a lot of talk about like we're never going on the road again, the touring is over, and I was like, well, I guess we can write songs and record, so we did that. When people like TRACII reach out, you go, hell yeah, let's do it. I have time. I'm on the couch watching season 3 of something. I don't know.
Well, the new album is set for release September 8th. It's called Solsorte, I believe, through Frontiers Music. There's no songs on the album called Solsorte, so how did you come up with the album's title?
It means blackbird Danish. So TRACII splits his time between Los Angeles and Denmark. And he just sort of like, he sort of the mock up of the album cover and the title and everything was there. And I go, well, that's cool. And I asked exactly the same question you asked. What does that mean? And it means blackbird. And I go, cool. I like it. I'm sure there's a lot of Danish people who, in fact, it's been pronounced to me in actual Danish. It doesn't sound anything like you think it should sound. So I was kind of like, okay, I accept your. I mean, it could be Todd. It could mean Todd's a jerk. I don't know, but the fact that TRACII presented it to me as Blackbird, so that's pretty cool.
So, how do you guys compose this album? Does he do the instrumentals? You do the lyrics? How does it go back and forth?
That's pretty much it. Yeah, it was Adam Hamilton and TRACII sort of coming up with the music, and it was presented to me entirely as a completed song. It's like I'm known as a bass player, but I didn't play bass on this record because it was sort of because they just had it all sort of finished. So I just kind of like, yeah, great, man, like lay it on me. And I just sat in here and wrote lyrics and wrote melodies and then turned it into songs. And it's a great challenge. I really enjoy that, actually. It's sort of that finding the song, I suppose the really pretentious way is to sort of like chipping away at the stone to find the sculpture underneath it or whatever you want to call it. But that is somewhat true. It's sort of you just have to kind of find the song within these riffs and all that kind of stuff. So largely I wasn't really involved in the musical side. A little bit of arrangement stuff had to be adjusted here and there, but mostly it was just kind of like presented to me as finished sort of ideas, and then I just had to kind of create lyrics and melodies for it.
From a fan perspective, from my own perspective here, I know that TRACII was trying to capture that 70s sound on the last LA Guns album, Black Diamonds, and I feel he missed the mark, but I feel he nailed it with you and Blackbird Angels here.
I Well, I will say to their credit that the newer LA Guns music is some of their strongest they've done in years. That said, I think that there's something about the Blackbird Angels project that was sort of really, that's our North Star. We want to do that. So it sort of lit a path for me that it was kind of like, okay, well, then it has to be this kind of thing. Not that it was sort of like, let's do impressions of Steve Marriott and Robert Plant. It was sort of like, it just felt like as I sat down to come up with ideas for it, I really kind of had to take the gloves off and stop thinking in terms of like, what are the kids listening to these days? You know, it was kind of like you really couldn't think that way at all. In reality, you were trying to think to yourself, is there a specific like if this record came out in 1976, would it sound like this? Probably not, but I think that that was the goal. And landing on that was sort of the fun part of the whole thing, was just kind of like, well, let's just take out our machetes and hack our way through this jungle and see where it leads us, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
You have the one song out right now, Shut Up, You Know I Love You. If you want to talk a little bit about the lyrical inspiration for that one.
Well, I sort of based it on the idea. I mean, the idea is sort of somebody who's very suspicious of said relationship and her ability. I'm only saying her because it could work either way, but because sort of thinking from the male perspective, her ability to kind of shut down anyone's fears or sort of suspicions just by sort of saying, shut up, I love you, or shut up, you know I love you. It's kind of like, what about this and what about that? Ah, shut up, you know I love you. I just thought it was just a kind of interesting idea to take, like, the three most important words in the world to hear from somebody, and then attach it to two you really don't want to hear from somebody. And I think it's sort of it's funny the things we'll put up with, long enough to kind of, until it's just sort of hits a wall of like, this is not working. But there was another song that we finally that we leaked out as well, called "Coming In Hot," that you can find on Spotify as well. So there are technically two. And then TRACII just leaked a third one, just in like Instagram and in that world. And that one is Mine All Mine. So there's three of them sort of floating around out there in whichever fashion. It's a weird time we live in, where the idea of A&R guys and managers and a lot of beard stroking about when we put this out and it's kind of a beautiful thing, really, to take away that whole pressure of how records are released, and then sort of putting us in a position where we can just be like, let's just make music and just hopefully get it out to people, and hopefully they'll be able to find it and enjoy it. And stuff's coming at us hot and heavy these days. We hope that we can get a decent amount of attention on the record, and then see what comes after that. I mean, it's you never know. The next day, Gwen Stefani releases something, and you're kind of like, okay, well, you get washed away by that kind of thing, or Taylor Swift, or take your pick. But it's a fascinating time to make music, and I think it's been pretty healthy overall. I've certainly been enjoying it.
Let's talk about one of those songs that you've teased. Let's talk about Mine All Mine, one of my favorites from the album. If you want to talk about kind of the inspiration for your lyrics on that one.
That's a funny one, because that was the very first one we worked on. They sent over that music, and it was has Zeppelin-y kind of elements to it. The slide guitar type thing. Great solo by TRACII actually on that one. So we it again has elements of that, relationshipy type thing too. But I guess it could be anything really. I like the idea of lyrics that, once in a while you'll be like I just recently, not that long ago, became aware that All My Love by Led Zeppelin was technically written about Robert Plant's son who passed away. And I was like, oh, wow, that adds a whole new level to that song when you listen to it, you know? But love songs in that, you know, if we use relationship type songs, sometimes it could be about God, you know, sometimes it could be about almost anything. And I think with Mine All Mine was sort of the idea of having that goal in mind and you will be mine. And whether it's somebody striving for success or um, maybe Frodo for the ring, you know, yeah. You can't go wrong with a good Tolkien reference in rock and roll.
Well,
But
that's
that
all Led
wasn't.
Zeppelin wants. That's all Led Zeppelin wants.
I had this conversation with Slash once. He was talking to me about he never really understood Rush. He goes, I don't know, I've never really understood all that kind of Lord of the Rings type stuff. And I go, what are you talking about? Led Zeppelin is more Lord of the Rings than Rush. You know, Bytor and the Snow Dog. I think things like that really threw him off. But I get it. It's an acquired taste. But I wasn't technically thinking of Tolkien or Lord of the Rings or Frodo or Gollum or any of those things. But um, just the idea of you know, that obsession and that sort of focused drive to whatever your goal is. That was sort of the that song. It's amongst our favorite songs too. TRACII, whenever TRACII plays the record for people, he always plays that one first. So I think he has a real strong connection to that one.
Are you planning on filming any music videos for these teaser tracks? Or are you going to keep just teasing more tracks along the way?
We have sort of entertained a lot of different ideas, but for right now, just sort of focused on "Shut Up, I Love You" and then see where we kind of go from there. It's been hard enough trying to get you know a plan together, even Tracy and I on what we could do um, live setting because it's sort of between our schedules. It's just you know it's nearly impossible. But I do believe I've had faith on a great many of these things. A lot of other projects that I've worked on in the past have to find a way to work well. So I really believe Blackbird Angels could very well find its way to a stage near you. Hopefully, we'll put our fingers on that.
Well, you kind of tease a little bit that Blackbird Angels is going to have some live performances in your PR materials. Obviously, Tracy busy with LA Guns, Adam Hamilton, an in demand drummer across the country. You mentioned that Johnny Martin and Sam, my autocorrect changed his last name, Sam
Sam
Bam,
Bam. We just call him Sam Bam. Yeah, yeah.
will be taking over live. So obviously, you're in the planning stages of that.
It's been sort of you know even when we made the it was the first time I discussed with Tracy. I go, look, I didn't play bass on this song. Am I meant to play bass in the video? He goes, I never thought of that. Hang on. And then we said, like, you know, back and forth. And then Johnny became the obvious choice. The one good thing is that Johnny and Tracy share a schedule together. Their availability is based upon the same thing, LA Guns. So ourselves to a point where we can find some common ground and some common time. Hopefully, we can make it make sense and make it be time to get on stage together. But currently, at this very moment, it's been very difficult trying to find a moment to do so. But I really do believe we'll find something at some point for sure.
We touched upon a little bit of promotion and you guys teasing stuff and just wanting to get the music out there. And then somebody else comes along and they release something that kind of pushes you back a little bit. You're on a label that Frontiers Music, they kind of stack their release dates too. So you're in competition within the label. You got 5 or 6 releases every 6 to 8 weeks coming through that particular label. So I would imagine there's a little difficulty there.
Well, yeah, but I would imagine being on Columbia or Mercury or Atlantic back in the day probably had, you know, hundreds of releases coming at all times. So the one good thing about Frontiers, well, there's good things about Frontiers. In this day and age, you know, the idea of someone kind of helping you finance and release and promote a record at all has become sort of an anomaly. You know, making records has become sort of they've turned it into a straight up cottage industry because if you're not in the position to sell records like Beyonce at number someone like that, it becomes kind of what's the point? And I think that with Aerosmith and Kiss and that I love, who haven't made new music, 10, 15 years or something, maybe 20s in some cases. It becomes a larger conversation of like, for those guys especially, it becomes, is there a point to make new music? It's a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of money to get everyone together and write and record. And the reward of it, although creatively rewarding, which is 100% make music, is, I don't sit around worrying about like, is this going to get played on radio in whichever market? Sort of like, look, I just love to create and I love to write and I love to make music. So at the end of the day, it's sort of why wouldn't we do everything we can to just continue doing that? And people like Frontiers are some of the last of the Mohicans helping Guy do this, Of course, they've got their own commitments and their own releases coming out. I've got that called Heroes and Monsters with Will from Evanescence and Alice Cooper. We put out a record a while ago, and we've been touring back and forth on that in Europe and whatnot. So I mean, it's a great place, a great sort of safety net to have, because we live in a day and age where making music it's almost a thought. I mean, the idea of going on the road. Well, we all know we're going to go see Paul McCartney. I hope he plays, All My Lovin' and Band on, and then he's also got a new record out. Yeah. So, but I think that within that is some inspiration that guys in their, basically in their 80s now are still making, because they're making new music, really about how much they're going to sell. Although I would imagine Paul's numbers are very healthy. So to me, it's kind of like, hell yeah, let's just keep making music until I just will. I mean, I just know I will. It's like whether it's no one's buying records anymore. I mean, that's the constant conversation. Been that conversation for 15 years now.
I was going to ask you about Heroes and Monsters next, so it's interesting that you brought it up. That your
I'm
album,
the king of the segue.
your self-titled album came out in January of 2023. You guys have done a little bit of touring, little different sound than Blackbird Angels, but still great album. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Are you gonna be coming out with a follow-up?
We are actually getting together one more time this year. I can't believe that we've been able to do this much, but the last one we did, we just did it not that long ago, and then it came up like, what do you think about going back before Christmas? And I was like, they're not sick of us yet, uh, and so we're going to go back over and do run 10, 11 shows. I think it's 11 shows. I just looked at them today. And we've definitely been talking about it. It's sort of going to be about scheduling, and it's going to be about a lot of things. But like I just mentioned, it's remaining creative and trying to stay creative is sort of the goal, and just keep making music, and then one day, I don't know, like tending to the garden. I don't know, whatever people are meant to do after they can't do this anymore. I don't know that there's actually I can't even a place where can't do this anymore is a thing. It physically happens to me or whatever, but the Ringo Starr is 83 and he's still doing this, and I kind of go, well, I guess just keep going and until we can't, we're in a position where what, I'm good. I have a lot of friends, or some friends, who are sort of like, I have one friend who's just no more airports, no more passports, no more, the entire thing just kind of eventually wore him down. And I go, I get it. I 100% get it. I still, for whatever reason, I still get a kick out of it. Getting ready to fly back, or, I'm looking at flights to Europe again. And it's kind of like something about, not everybody's a pirate. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of the, when I was younger, I used to kind of go, who the hell wants to have a job and a family and all that kind of stuff? And then, of course, you get older and you go, I realize that, I actually have a lot of respect for guys who walked away from something as fun as music, because they wanted to have something else, but I'm going and going and going until the wheels fall off, basically.
Before I let you go, I got to find out how you got the nickname Dammit.
Well, Todd Dammit rhymes with God damn it. That's been around for a long, long time. So it's just kind of like one of those things that when I relocated, I didn't even relocate. I say that and then I kind of correct myself. But when I came down to Las Vegas from Canada, I had a whole career in Canada that was, made up, all the years of making records and gold records and doing really well. But what I found fascinating was coming somewhere and all of that meant nothing because I'm in a country. And it was funny to be able to play shows and I would just sort of introduce myself as Todd Dammit on stage as a joke. And then all of a sudden, Vinnie Paul from Pantera, and he was always hanging around, and he didn't know who Todd Kerns was. They would say, our one friend refers to everybody by their last name, like he's a gym teacher. And then Kearns came here the other night, and Vinny's like, who? And it's sort of like it just became one of those things. Vinnie Paul's across a casino screaming, "Todd, damn it!" And I'm like, "Oh, Vinny's here." It just became one of those things where it just started to stick. And I never really intended to use it in any professional sense. But then, of course, Slash started introducing me as Todd Dammit Kearns on stage, and then it just sort of became, okay, well, that's what it is. I mean, I still professionally go as Todd Kearns. I don't really, but the Todd Dammit Kearns sort of just kind of got stuck in there. People think, is it like, because it's in the middle of those two words. If my name was Todd Dammit, I think people would go, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah.
Now, I read that Slash is working on a new album outside of featuring Miles Kennedy and the Co-Conspirators. Are you going to be working on that one?
No, he sort of really set out to do a blues. Well, they call it a blues record. I'm sure it's probably blues influenced for whatever you want to call it. But I've been talking to him about it because I'm very curious to check it out. But it's just something he did sort of like in the midst of his Guns N' Roses adventures. And I just sort of said, when's it being released? Should we play one of those songs on the road? He goes, I never thought of that. I'm always the annoying bug in people's ears about that kind of stuff. So who knows? I know it's like Billy Gibbons is on it. A bunch of really cool people are on it. So it sounds really exciting. Yeah. But I think that comes out in the spring, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Yeah.
All right. Well, those are all the questions I have for you today, Todd. The new BLACKBIRD ANGELS album, Solsorte, comes out on September 8th through Frontiers Music. Great album. I've been listening to it all week. A lot to be proud of, and I'm glad I could find out a little more about it today.
Thank you so much, brother. Have an amazing day.